The forbidden sound. Umalu was a village cradled by mountains and veiled in mist each morning. Life was simple. Roosters crowed at dawn, women pounded yam by noon, and children ran barefoot until the sun disappeared behind the baobab trees. But there was one thing that remained untouched, unspoken, and feared: the forest of Isaba. Elders warned children never to wander beyond the stream into the forest. "That land is cursed," they would say, tapping their canes. "The spirit of betrayal lives there, resting inside the cursed drum." But like many young men who refused to be caged by stories of the old, Kelechi was curious. At 18, he was strong, tall, and fearless. His father, Ogbufi, was a respected hunter, and his mother, Mama Nawaka, a skilled weaver. Yet Kelechi wanted more than the rhythm of routine life. He craved discovery, adventure, danger. One quiet afternoon, while tending goats near the border of Isaba, Kelechi heard something strange, a low hum, like the echo of drums beneath the earth. He tilted his head. There it was again, faint but steady. Drawn like a moth to flame, he stepped across the stream and into the forbidden woods. The trees here were thicker, their roots like snakes gripping the earth. Vines dangled like warnings, and the air smelled of old rain and secrets. As he pushed deeper, the hum grew louder, leading him to a moss-covered mound. He dropped to his knees and began digging with his bare hands. Hours passed. Sweat soaked his shirt, and his fingers bled, but Kelechi didn't stop. Then, thud, wood. Carefully, he brushed away the soil to reveal a wooden drum, dark as midnight, with symbols carved around its body. The moment he touched it, a sharp wind blew through the forest, howling like 1,000 voices. Ignoring the unease in his chest, Kelechi lifted the drum and hit it once. Boom! The sound shook the trees. Birds scattered. The air shifted. He played again. Boom, boom, boom. The rhythm came to him naturally, as if his hands remembered a song his mind never knew. Suddenly, a shriek echoed from the depths of the forest. The trees trembled. The drum slipped from his fingers and rolled into the undergrowth. Kelechi stood frozen as a coldness crawled over his skin. He ran, faster than he ever had. He didn't stop until he was back in the village, panting, heart thundering like the drumbeat still echoing in his mind. That night, the village changed. Cattle cried and broke free. Wind tore through thatched roofs. Flames erupted from cooking fires without warning. Children woke screaming from nightmares they couldn't explain. In the meeting hut, the elders gathered, their faces grim. "The curse," Elder Ataku whispered, her voice trembling. "It has returned." Kelechi, hiding in his hut, wrestled with guilt and confusion. He didn't know what he had awakened, only that it had begun with a sound. A sound he should never have made. And far beyond the village, deep within the forest, the shadows began to move. The spirit of the betrayed priestess had stirred. Whispers in the night. The morning after the chaos, Umalu awoke to an eerie silence. No birds sang, no goats bleated. Even the wind seemed hesitant to breathe. Fear had settled in like dust, clinging to every wall and doorway. In the center of the village, the elders gathered again beneath the sacred Iroko tree. Elder Ataku, with her milky eyes and beaded cane, spoke first. "This is no ordinary disturbance. Something ancient has awakened." The villagers murmured among themselves. Some clutched charms. Others wept quietly. Only Kelechi sat alone, away from the crowd, the drumbeat still echoing in his mind. He hadn't told anyone about what he'd done. Shame and fear warred within him. "Who among us has entered the forest of Isaba?" Elder Chukwu demanded, his voice sharp. "Who has disturbed the drum?" No one answered. Mama Nawaka, watching her son's pale face from afar, frowned. Mothers know things. And deep inside, she suspected. That night, Kelechi couldn't sleep. Every creak of the hut made him jump. At midnight, a whisper floated into his ears, soft, feminine, chilling. "You played my song." Kelechi shot up, eyes wide. The whisper was gone. He rubbed his face and stepped outside. Mist clung to the ground, and the village lay still. But as he turned to go back inside, he saw her, a woman standing at the edge of the path, near the trees. She wore a long white cloth that shimmered under the moonlight. Her hair flowed like water, and her eyes glowed faintly gold. "Who are you?" he asked, heart pounding. The woman smiled. "You know me, Kelechi. You summoned me." He stepped back. "Summoned? I didn't mean to. You struck the drum, my drum, and now the pact must be honored." "I don't understand," he stammered. "You will," she said, and vanished like smoke. Kelechi stumbled back into his hut, terrified. At dawn, he couldn't take it anymore. He rushed to Elder Atiku's compound and fell to his knees. "I was the one," he confessed. "I went into the forest. I dug up the drum. I played it." Elder Atiku looked at him long and hard. Her expression held sorrow, not anger. "Then the stories were true," she said. "What stories?" he asked, desperate. She motioned for him to sit. "Centuries ago, a priestess named Ojima guarded the sacred drum of Umalu. It was said to hold the power to call spirits, both divine and cursed. When the villagers betrayed her, killing her lover and banishing her, she poured her soul into the drum and cursed it with her final breath. She swore that if anyone awakened it, her wrath would return." Kelechi's stomach turned. "What happens now?" Atiku sighed. "Now, Ojima walks again. And she will not rest until Umalu pays." Kelechi left her compound with heavy steps. He'd started something beyond his understanding. But he also knew this: he had to fix it. Somehow. As the sun dipped once more below the horizon, the mist returned, thicker, darker. And in its heart, the ghostly priestess waited. The spirit's warning. Kelechi barely slept the next night. His dreams were soaked in flames and whispers, shadowy figures dancing around him, chanting in tongues he couldn't understand. When he finally awoke, drenched in sweat, the sun was already high in the sky. Word had spread across Umalu that the curse had returned because of a single drumbeat. But only Elder Atiku and Mama Nawaka knew who was truly responsible. The villagers prayed harder. Some fasted. Others packed their belongings in secret, planning to flee. Meanwhile, Kelechi stood before the forest again. This time, not as a boy chasing wonder, but as a young man seeking redemption. He stepped into Isaba carefully, each movement deliberate. The forest, once alive with noise and insects, now felt like a forgotten grave. No birds, no crickets. Just the sound of his breath. He returned to the place he'd unearthed the drum. The mound of soil was still disturbed. Nearby, the drum lay, untouched. Yet something about it had changed. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, glowing with a soft red hue. Kelechi knelt beside it. "I didn't know. I didn't mean to awaken you," he whispered. A cold breeze swept through the trees. Then, once more, he heard her voice. "Ojima. You say you didn't know. But knowledge does not excuse awakening the dead." She materialized from the shadows, tall and regal, her face painted with symbols of old. Her eyes shimmered with rage, but also sorrow. "You called me, and so I came," she said. "Umalu betrayed me. They spilled my lover's blood and laughed as I wept. For that, I cursed them. Now, the curse lives again through you. Please," Kelechi begged, "I want to undo it. Tell me how. Ojima studied him. Undoing a curse is not as easy as striking a drum. It requires pain, truth, and sacrifice. Are you willing to pay that price? He swallowed. Yes. Then listen carefully, she said, her voice turning to wind. You must return the drum to the sacred shrine at Mount Ida. There, under the moon's full eye, it must be played one last time, not with hands of pride, but with a heart of purity. Only then will I listen. But the mountain is 3 days away, he said. And the village. Every hour you delay, the curse grows stronger, she warned. By the third night, Umalu will be ash and bones. Then she vanished. Kalechi stood, heart racing. He had a mission now. A path. But he could not walk it alone. Back in the village, he went straight to Mama Nawaka. Mother, I need your help, he said. She looked into his eyes, saw the fear, and nodded. I knew this day would come. Together, they visited Elder Ataku once more, who summoned the council. Kalechi stood before them all, the drum at his feet. I brought this upon us, he said, voice trembling. But I will make it right. I will take it to Mount Ida and end this curse. The elders argued. Some demanded punishment. Others feared the journey. But in the end, Ataku raised her cane and declared, let the boy go. Let him finish what he began. And may the spirits have mercy on us all. As Kalechi prepared for the journey, the skies darkened. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Time was running out. But in his heart, for the first time since that fatal drumbeat, a spark of hope flickered. Whispers of rebellion. Amina woke before dawn. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the world soaked and steaming in the heavy African heat. Mist clung to the trees, softening their broken silhouettes where bulldozers had bitten into their flesh. Today would not be like any other day. Today, she would act. She wrapped her mother's old kitenj around her shoulders and slipped out of the house without waking Mama Jaja. The ground squelched under her bare feet as she moved silently toward the river. The river was her witness. The river was her strength. At the banks, she knelt. The water was brown and angry, full of churned-up earth. Amina dipped her hands into the current, letting the water run through her fingers. I am your daughter, she whispered. Guide me. In answer, a swirl of leaves gathered around her fingers, as if the river itself blessed her. With a heart full of resolve, she rose. It was time to gather the others. The market was slow that day. The farmers' stalls looked thin, their goods were fewer, their faces lined with worry. Fish was scarce. Yams were rotting in the fields because the rains had flooded too deeply. Sickness lingered like smoke over the village. Amina moved through the crowd, whispering to the people she trusted. To Juma, the blacksmith, whose son had fallen ill. To Nia, the weaver, whose husband had lost his job when the river poisoned the fields. To old Mazi Bakari, who had once fought colonial powers and still carried the fire of rebellion in his bones. Tonight, Amina said, under the baobab, after the moon rises. Each one nodded, silently. Fear hovered in their eyes. But so did something else, something long forgotten. Hope. That night, under the heavy, pregnant moon, a small group gathered. 15 souls, young and old, mothers and sons, farmers and dreamers. Amina stood before them, feeling the weight of their gaze. Her voice trembled, but she spoke anyway. They are killing our river, she said. They are killing us. Mazi Bakari nodded, his gnarled hand clutching a walking stick like a sword. They poison our children, Amina continued. For their factories. For their greed. A murmur ran through the crowd. We cannot wait for the chief to save us. He is lost to his son's promises. We must act. And what would you have us do, little one? Asked Nia, her voice cautious but curious. Amina lifted her chin. We must show them. We must make it impossible for the factory to continue. We must remind them that this land, this river, is alive. Mazi Bakari's eyes glinted with pride. Spoken like a true daughter of Niamh. Plans were made in hushed tones. They would block the road with fallen trees. They would spill salt into the diesel tanks of the bulldozers. They would paint warnings in bright red across the construction site, ancient symbols of protection and wrath. Amina knew it was dangerous. If they were caught, there would be beatings. Maybe worse. But when she looked at the faces around her, Samir's grieving mother, Juma's sick son, Nia's worried eyes, she knew they had no choice. Freedom, she realized, was not given. It had to be taken. As the meeting ended, Amina lingered under the baobab tree. The moonlight filtered through the branches, bathing her in silver. Suddenly, a soft voice spoke behind her. You are brave, but foolish. Amina turned. It was Kofi, the quiet boy who worked in the marketplace sharpening knives. He was tall and thin, with eyes too old for his years. Why do you say that? Amina asked. Kofi shrugged. Kato has men, guns, money. All you have are words and hope. Amina stepped closer. Sometimes, she said, hope is enough to start a fire. Kofi watched her for a long moment, then nodded. Then I will bring my fire too, he said, a small smile breaking his somber face. They clasped hands, sealing their silent pact. Tomorrow, they would fight for their river. Tomorrow, they would awaken the spirit of Niamh itself. The river's revenge. The morning broke heavy and gray, the clouds hanging low like mourning veils. But beneath the sky, the village buzzed with a quiet, fierce energy. Today was the day. Amina stood at the edge of the dirt road, clutching a bundle of thick rope made from banana fibers. Around her, the others worked swiftly, felling trees, dragging branches across the path to create a blockade. Every sound seemed louder today. Every breath sharper. In the distance, the factory trucks grumbled awake, unaware of what awaited them. The first sign of trouble came at noon. A long horn blasted through the village as the supply trucks tried to pass and found their way blocked by fallen timber and thorn bushes. The drivers shouted curses. The factory foreman stormed out, red-faced and sweating. But when they saw the markings painted across the trees, the sacred sigils of wrath, protection, and war, they hesitated. Every villager had vanished. Shops closed. Stalls empty. Doors barred. The village was silent as a grave. Only the river spoke a distant roar, louder than ever before. Inside his glass office at the factory's edge, Kato seethed. His father, the chief, had pleaded with him to slow down the project, to respect the old ways. Kato had laughed in his face. Now, someone dared to defy him. He sent his private guards to tear down the barricades, to arrest anyone they found. But there was no one to arrest. No evidence. Just an invisible wall of defiance. Night fell fast that day. By the time Kato returned from his fruitless patrols, exhausted and furious, something strange began to happen. The river, the one he had thought conquered, began to rise. At first, it was just a trickle over the banks. Then a surge. Then a roar. Water crashed against the newly built pipes and tanks, ripping them loose. Machinery was swept away like toys. The ground itself trembled. Men screamed. Lights went out. The factory was swallowed by the river's fury. High above, on the hills overlooking the disaster, Amina and the villagers watched in silence. They had not caused the flood. They had simply awakened the river's anger. Called it back with their songs and their faith. The river had done the rest. Mazi Bakari leaned heavily on his stick, his old voice soft with awe. Niamh has answered. Amina felt tears burning her eyes, but she did not look away. This was justice. This was survival. When the sun rose the next day, the factory was gone. Twisted metal lay half buried in mud. The land smelled of wet earth and wild flowers, not smoke. Kato was nowhere to be seen. Some said he fled into the mountains, others that the river took him. No one grieved. The chief, stripped of his son's poisoned wealth, came before the people in rags, begging for forgiveness. The villagers listened and forgave, but they no longer needed him. They had Amina. They had each other. And they had their river. Years later, when Amina's hair turned silver and her back bent with age, children would gather around her at dusk to hear the story. "Tell us again, Bibi Amina." They would beg. "Tell us how the river fought for us." And Amina would smile a deep, knowing smile. And begin. Once upon a time, the river slept. But thanks to brave hearts, it woke again. And it would never sleep again. Not while they remembered. Not while they stood together. Not while the spirit of their ancestors flowed in their veins, wild and free as the river itself.